The ocean. From Ishmael of Moby Dick to the captains of Deadliest Catch, something about it calls to the adventurer in all of us. But while life on the sea may seem romantic, you can never forget that at any given moment, Poseidon is waiting to destroy you in an infinite number of ways. So, today we're dredging up all the ways the ocean can kill you. But before all that maritime mayhem, make sure you've subscribed to the Weird History channel. After that, pop on down to the comments and let us know what other deadly nature you want to hear about. All right, sailors, hope you packed some floaties. Let's get something out of the way up front. Sea monsters do not exist. There are plenty of large animals that could instantly obliterate you, totally by accident. But krakens, megalodons, and Godzillas only exist in the movies. I know, it hit me hard too. But the ocean doesn't need sea monsters to unmake your day. Among the greatest threats this vast expanse presents to human life is just plain old exposure to cold water. As poor, doorless Jack from Titanic will tell you, even partial submersion in water between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit can kill you if you remain there too long, because it quickly removes the heat from your body. Within just a minute of exposure to ice-cold water, you can enter a kind of shock that causes dramatic changes to your breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. This makes it more taxing to swim to safety, if not impossible. Within 10 minutes, a swimmer in cold water can start to experience loss of muscle control, and it only takes about 20 to 30 minutes for hypothermia to set in. That's barely enough time for a whole podcast. Hypothermia occurs when your body's core temperature reaches below 35 degrees Fahrenheit. In mild cases, the person only suffers mental confusion and extreme shivering. It's actually when the shivering stops that the real trouble begins. Extreme hypothermia can lead to hallucinations, increased risk of heart stoppage, and ultimately, death, the permanent kind. Then there's the movement of water to worry about. Rip currents are channels of water that quickly rush from the shoreline to the sea at speeds of up to 8 feet per second. Recreational beachgoers may notice that they start swimming in the ocean not very far from shore, but soon find themselves a good deal away from the beach. That's because water currents slowly and gently carry you out to sea, and they're difficult to spot at the surface as they build up underneath. Rip currents work via the same principle. They're just particularly powerful. As of 2022, rip currents were responsible for about 70 to 100 drownings each year, and they're also responsible for about 80% of lifeguard rescue situations. What makes them so dangerous is not just the actual movement of the water itself, but human psychology. People tend to panic when they find themselves being quickly pulled out to sea. Then they exhaust themselves swimming directly against the flow of water, hoping to reach land. If you ever find yourself stuck in a rip current, you have a few options. You can float and tread water, letting it carry you out until its power dissipates, typically beyond the line of breaking waves. Or swim, not against the current, but perpendicular to it, parallel to the shore, until you are out of the current and can make your way back to shore. Your third option is to make some room on that damn door, Rose. As we said, there are no such things as sea monsters, but there are definitely creatures in the ocean waiting to kill you. In fact, one of the deadliest waterborne species isn't even visible to the naked eye. Algae are simple microscopic organisms that typically thrive in water. When summertime storms churn the oceans, it leads to massive blooms of phytoplankton, which obtain their energy via photosynthesis, the same process that trees and other plants use to grow on land. This in turn leads to huge marine deposits of algae, known as algal blooms. Many of these algal blooms are totally non-toxic and perfectly healthy for humans to be around. But because nature loves surprises, this is not always the case. Some kinds of algae release toxins that are dangerous or even deadly to humans. So when they gather in large deposits, we end up with what's known as harmful algal bloom, or HAB for short. Those clever scientists. Swimming through a HAB can release toxins that impact the human nervous, digestive, respiratory, hepatic, dermatological, and cardiac systems. In other words, just about every process in the human body. In fact, beachgoers who didn't even go in the water but were merely too close to a HAB have reported upper respiratory symptoms, irritation to eyes and noses, fevers, and infections. But undetected HABs can also get inside the seafood we consume. Neurotoxic poisoning results from the consumption of clams, oysters, mussels, and other shellfish. that have consumed the brevetoxins given off by algal blooms. Complaints include abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, partial paralysis, and other symptoms you'd rather not experience. There are 69 different species of snakes that live in the oceans, and many of them are quite venomous. Most sea snakes are found in the waters of the Pacific and Indian Oceans, and a number of them bear strong similarities to the land snakes that inhabit Australia, suggesting a common ancestry. Australia's animals are evidently so deadly they've begun invading the ocean. Many sea snakes have paddle-like tails and compressed bodies ideal for navigating the waters, but they're not to be confused with fish or eels. Sea snakes don't have gills and can't actually breathe underwater. All of them need to occasionally surface to take in oxygen, like dolphins, whales, and Super Mario in an underwater level. Though many species of sea snakes are highly venomous, they don't always release their venom when biting, which makes actual human fatalities exceptionally rare. A 2018 Australian fisherman's death from a sea snake bite was actually the first documented fatality since a pearl diver's death all the way back in 1935. In fact, on several occasions, people have reported getting bitten by sea snakes and not realizing it until discovering the tooth still lodged in their skin hours later. More than any other creature in the ocean, nothing inspires terror in a hapless swimmer quite like a shark. They are the LeBron James of aquatic danger. Well, despite what you may have heard from a famous Steven Spielberg movie, or a famous movie where they live inside tornadoes, sharks actually have little interest in eating people. In other words, sharks are likely to be one of your least concerns while you're out at sea. In 2023, there were only 69 reports of unprovoked shark attacks worldwide, and of those, only 10 resulted in human fatalities. The deadliest place for shark attacks that year was the United States, and the bulk of those happened in Florida, which alone is responsible for nearly half of the world's shark attacks. Australia had to settle for second place with just 15 attacks. Sharkadile Dundee was devastated. For the most part, when sharks do bite humans, it's by accident. The animal was probably just curious or had mistaken a human or surfboard for a marine creature that it actually likes to eat. Surprisingly, shark attacks are often survivable, if terrifying and costly in the limb department. They're relatively rare, but if you go looking for trouble, there are some deadly species of octopus that will make you rethink that adorable documentary from a few years back. While many of the eight-legged creatures famously use ink to distract and disorient their enemies, some species are noted for their powerful venom. Blue-ringed octopuses are a species native to the Pacific and Indian Oceans, characterized by their blue and black rings that change color when the animal is threatened. They prefer to eat small crustaceans like crabs and shrimp, but when provoked, they're among the deadliest species of marine life, capable of dispensing tetrodotoxin, the same neurotoxin dispensed by the infamously lethal pufferfish. When a human is exposed to TTX, they experience a loss of sensation accompanied by the paralysis of muscles, such as the diaphragm, which can cause them to stop breathing entirely. Fortunately, if you encounter a blue-ringed octopus, it will most often avoid conflict unless you give it a reason. As a wise man once said, "Don't start nothing, won't be nothing." Among the most mysterious and, let's face it, creepy marine animals is the jellyfish, members of the subphylum Medusozoa, that are notable for their free-swimming, gelatinous bodies. The jellyfish's squishy part, the so-called bell, is actually composed of a substance called mesoglea, which is mostly water bound together by fibrous proteins like collagen. It's also how the creature moves through the water. The bell pulsates and contracts, pushing the animal forward, like a cartoon character with bad gas. While some cultures consider jellyfish a culinary delicacy, in the West, jellyfish are most commonly associated with their painful stings. Many species have tentacles armed with a specialized kind of cell known as nematocysts, which can pierce skin and inject venom. Only a certain subset of jellyfish stings are even detectable by humans. Thousands of swimmers are stung by jellyfish each year, and most of them are just fine a few minutes later. However, there are a few kinds of jellyfish with such potent venom, their stings are extremely painful or even fatal to humans, such as a certain species of box jellyfish. Beyond potentially delivering a killer dose of venom to a person, box jellyfish have significantly more complex and developed nervous systems than the average jellyfish. Some researchers report they develop more environmentally aware, fish-like behavior in the wild than other jellyfish. And if that's not upsetting enough, some species can have tentacles that stretch over 10 feet long. That's almost one Victor Wembanyama. Box jellyfish are also difficult to avoid if you're looking to start a seafaring life. They're native to the tropical Indo-Pacific region, which spans a pretty good stretch of territory. Some box jellyfish have been found as far north as California, as far east as Japan, and as far south as New Zealand. So just stick to the Atlantic and you'll be fine. Still, despite all these sinister facts, the chances of actually getting smoked by a box jellyfish are fairly low. Most species aren't fatal to humans, and it's estimated that they're responsible for fewer than 100 human deaths each year. Many box jellyfish stings only produce bad skin irritation. By the way, though it's often repeated in popular media, like that we only use 10% of our brains nonsense, the idea that human urine can counteract a jellyfish sting is just a myth. There's no direct scientific evidence that it makes any difference. However, applying vinegar directly to a jellyfish sting might have some effect. It neutralizes undischarged nematocysts, which can prevent the release of additional venom. So, even if you do wind up stranded on a desert island, don't take any survival tips from Lost. So what do you think? What's your worst ocean-related fear? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.